Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on which side of the country you're at. Uh, Thanks for coming in. Just gonna hold up here, give a second for people to start trickling in. Um, as you do come in, please feel free. There in the chat box, we always like to kind of see who all is coming in from where. Feel free to share what your name is, where you're from. I always love whenever we get somebody from Hawaii popping in. That's my home away from home. Absolutely obsessed with the place. But feel free, share where you're from. Tell us a little something about yourself if you want. But right there in the chat box, we're gonna give again a little bit of time for people to start trickling in to make sure that we try not to miss anybody. Just to give a couple minutes here. But once we do get started, again, today's presentation is going to be on the top 10 tips to fuel up before football practice. So, with that all being said, I think we've got a couple people rolling in here already. Things are looking like we're moving and grooving. So, perfect. We just had the NFL draft not too long ago. We had some college spring games. So, football season is here. It's at least it's teasing us that it's here, but it's oh so close and right around the corner. So I believe we gave a bit of time. I'm going to go ahead and dive on into things. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get rocking and rolling. So throughout our time together, please feel free ask any questions that you may have. There is a Q&A section as well that you can post those in to help make sure that any questions you have don't get buried in the chat stream. I want to make sure that I hit any and all questions that you may have. So please feel free. Don't be shy. Utilize those resources right there. But as we go along, feel free. Fire away the questions. And at the end, I'm going to make sure that we have some time and I'll go back and answer any questions that may pop up. So, that all being said, let's dive on in. I'm going to share my screen here, assuming I can get this to cooperate with me. Bingo. I think we are all set. So, again, today's topic, we're going to dive into the top 10 tips to fuel up before football practice. And before we dive into that, to give you an idea as to who this person is talking to you, my name is Jay. I am one of the sports dietitians here at My Sports Dietitian. A little bit of my background is I started out as a research dietitian at The Ohio State University. I got kind of that nerd side to really understand the science, and then I got into the application of it. So I was able to get my certification as a specialist in sports dietetics, and I became the first team dietitian for the MLS Professional Soccer Club here in Columbus, the Columbus Crew. Won a championship with them and have since gone on to be the consulting dietitian for the U.S. men's national soccer team. So a little bit different football has been a bit more of my primary background and things. But during my time at Ohio State in undergrad, I spent years helping out with the football team there as well. So football was the first love for me. So excited to get back into this here. Some things that we're going to be learning here today. We're, again, going to go over those top 10 tips. We're going to dive into a couple case studies. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, give you some opportunities to start to apply and do a little thinking about those different situations that'll pop up for these individuals that likely may be similar situations for yourself. And then we'll go into some frequently asked questions that have popped up in the past, and then the action steps. We'll review everything that we learned and what some of the key takeaways can be. Oh, doesn't seem to cooperate. There we go. So the goals for all of this is we want to make sure that players are understanding what they need to be eating to keep from feeling hungry before and during the game. There's nothing worse than taking the field and having your stomach rumbling right from the first snap. So we also want to make sure that we're putting in strategies to be able to refill and replenish all those energy stores, that glycogen, which is the body's carbohydrate stores. Those get used up a lot during games, and we want to make sure that we're refilling them and topping them off going into the game to make sure we've got everything in store to be able to go and perform our best. So Starting right off with it. Tip number one, eating foods high in carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the body's primary source of energy at high intensity activities in particular. The average football play is going to be right around 3, maybe 4 seconds. And during those seconds, absolutely, it's all out. So during that intensity, the body is relying predominantly on carbohydrates. So we want to make sure that we're providing the body with that fuel. So ensuring that carbohydrates make a good part of that pre-game meal and pre-game snacks is going to be critical. While the other nutrition components of protein, fat, and fiber are all important, these are things, though, for tip number two that we want to be mindful of the portions of as we get closer to game time. So, these food groups in particular take a bit longer for the body to digest. And so, if we eat them too close to the game, the body is going to be trying to digest them while also trying to perform. And this can cause the stomach to get a little upset that food hasn't been able to clear out. So, instead of clearing it out and digesting it, it's just sitting. And that's when we can start to get some gas buildup and just that uncomfortable bloating feeling going on in there. So a little bit beforehand can be okay, in particular that protein piece, because that protein is going to provide that fullness, which again, as we mentioned before, we don't want to go out onto that field with our stomach rumbling. So having a little bit, perfectly okay to primarily help curb that hunger aspect. But those should not be making the focal point of your meal. Timing wise, that last full meal should be about 3 to 4 hours before the game. That's going to give the body enough time to be able to digest everything to avoid what we were just discussing of that kind of bloated, that gas buildup going on in the stomach. It gives the body time to clear it all out to ensure that we're feeling good, feeling fresh to take that field. So, with carbohydrates being that main nutrient that we want to be focusing on, the amount that we want to strive for, if you're a numbers person, is right around 3 to 4 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight. So, if going off of pounds, basically it's right around 2 kilograms or 2 pounds per kilogram. So, to help with that, essentially, if you just divide that 3 to 4 by 2, if you multiply your weight in pounds by 1.5 or 2, you're going to be in a great spot. Going to be in a great spot. So, for simplicity, for numbers, if you weigh 100 pounds, if you're getting around 150 to 200 grams of carbohydrates, perfect. If you weigh 200 pounds, if you're getting around 300 to 400 grams of carbohydrates, perfect. Again, though, with this big meal, while you can absolutely have all the different components of some fat and protein and fiber, you still want to make sure that you're not having too much of that fat and fiber. Because again, you want to make sure the body's able to digest it all. So, some examples and some meal ideas include turkey sandwich on bread with a little bit of cheese, some yogurt, and a piece of fruit. You can go the breakfast option, especially if it happens to be an earlier game. You can go with French toast, or my personal favorite, some pancakes, throw some syrup on those bad boys, have a couple eggs, a little bit of milk, and a piece of fruit, good to go. Or the classic, go with some pasta. Have some pasta, a little bit of meat sauce there, add in a breadstick or two, and have some milk to wash all that down, and you're good to go. Tip number 4, as we get closer to the game time, those meals are going to start to get a little bit smaller, and we're going to want to be a little bit more careful about what we're consuming. So, 2 hours beforehand, solid foods can still be consumed, but this is where that individualization comes into play. If it sits well for you, game on. If it doesn't, don't force yourself. Opt for the liquids. And we'll get into that in a little bit here, but check and see with yourself what sits well. Try these things in practice, see how you feel with it. But typically, right around 2 hours is where kind of some more of the solid type items kind of hit their cutoff point. So at this point, can still be a great time to add in that snack, especially if you're starting to feel a little hungry. And some sample ideas are a quick bowl of cereal, some toast or a muffin, having a nice little bagel with a little bit of yogurt, or going with a smoothie. Again, that liquid piece, the body's going to be able to digest the liquids that much easier than solids. They don't have to worry about chewing and breaking things down. It's already been blended, it's already a liquid. The body's able to process and digest and clear that out a little bit quicker. So listen to the body, but as we get closer, be more mindful of that. And then again, tip 5, as we get right up to game time, that's when that prioritization of those carbohydrates really starts to take over. The closer that we get, the more simple we want those carbs to be, the more carb heavy and dominant we want those carbs to be. So as we get closer, if you're a numbers person again, right around for within an hour of game time, 1 gram of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight is what we're going to be shooting for there. So for pounds, if you take half your body weight, you're in a good spot. So if you have, again, for about a 200-pound player, if you're going right at about 100 grams of carbohydrates, perfect. But that being said, listen to the body. That does not sit well for you. Do not force that. But the items that you're consuming are going to be similar. You want to prioritize those carbohydrate items, such as a banana, sports drinks, those gels, those chews. The one thing though is with those gels is you want to make sure that you consume some fluid. That's the one little thing. While very popular and very easy to grab and consume, you're going to want to wash it down because the concentration is a little bit more dense, and that liquid will help just wash it out a little bit, make it easier on the body. But those are the types of things to be looking for and prioritizing as we get right up to game time. Number 6, you can't skip on the hydration. You want to make sure that you're staying hydrated with everything going on. So as we get closer and closer to game time, we want to make sure that all that hydration work has been done prior. We don't want to all of a sudden be chugging water right before we step on the field. So to help set that benchmark with that pre-match meal, with that pre-game meal, right around 3 to 4 hours beforehand, aim for 16 to 24 ounces of fluid. So if you have that standard Gatorade bottle as a reference point, that's about half to 3/4 of a bottle with that meal. That's going to help top off that fluid, make sure you're going into everything nice and hydrated, and be able to give the body time again to process that a little bit too, to avoid that sloshing feeling that I feel almost all of us have experienced at one point in time, where it's like your stomach is almost on a cruise ship and you can just hear that water going around. So start hydrating early, start hydrating often to avoid having to chug right before the game. Tip number 7, individualized nutrition plan is highly recommended. Everything that we had been discussing, those are just benchmarks. Those are guidelines. Again, listen to the body. If something doesn't sit well, don't force it, especially on game day. Big thing is no new foods. Do what you know sits well, what you've had previously, and don't force it. Number 8, have consistently practiced on the go options in case you're traveling and don't have access to kind of a full kitchen and a full meal. Again, this comes back to do what you've had previously that you know sits well. Grab those stomach friendly items that are going to be able to pack into your bag, take along with you. So that can be something as simple as peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, trail mix, those granola bars, some dry cereal, fruit, but just pack in the bag to make sure that you have those things on hand. But that comes with preparing in advance, thinking ahead. Okay, what is the environment? What options are going to be available? And ensuring that you have things to complement that. Number 9, exactly what we've been reiterating. All choices should be familiar and easily digested. You don't want to try something brand new right on game day. If you're thinking about incorporating something, whether it be a new snack, a new granola bar, something like that, if you've heard a buddy that might be having something previously, try it in practice. You want to simulate as close to a game situation as you can to figure out how your body truly responds. If it responds well, then you can add it in to the game itself. But if you're trying something brand new, the game's not the time, because heaven forbid, if there's a bad experience and it doesn't sit well, you still got a game that you got to be able to go and compete in. So you want to make sure that you're feeling fresh, make sure that you're feeling good, And ensuring that you're not surprising the system with any new foods is just going to help you with that. So control the things that you can control and stick with those staples. Tip number 10 is maintaining good nutritional intake in the days leading up to the game. You can't all of a sudden, the day of, try to erase potentially days of poor nutrition. It's that consistency that's really going to be able to help set things up. You want to make sure that you're starting in the beginning of the week to be able to ensure that come Friday, Saturday, or Sunday nights when you're playing, that the body's in a prime state to be able to go and do that. You can't just try to cram it all in to just one day. So start early, start with that planning, ensure that you're getting those well-balanced meals throughout the entire week, and then all those tips and strategies that we discussed for the game day itself, make sure that you have things in place to be able to capitalize on that. So here's a little case study. We've got lovely Bill. He's 20 years old, 6'1", 215, and is a D1 running back. Bill said the pregame meal is set out by the football staff and usually occurs about 4 hours before the game. He's complaining, though, that he's often feeling hungry again just 2 hours later, 2 hours prior to the game. And during that time, he'll then just grab some goldfish crackers. He also happened to mention that sometimes he's experiencing muscle cramping. So first things first, and again, feel free to chime in to the lovely little chat box there. I'm going to pull this up myself so I can see those answers. If I can do that. There we go. Pulling that up here. So for all of those attending, feel free. So I'm going to go back. I apologize. All of a sudden we got Ryan popping up here. We're getting there. We're getting there. There we go. All right. I'm sorry if I made anybody nauseous with all the movement and everything, but we got Bill. So in his situation, feel free to chime in the little chat box there. How many carbohydrates do you think he should be consuming in that pre-game meal 4 hours beforehand? What are some of those options he should be having? Then also, what are some recommendations to help Bill feel more energetic in the second half of the game? So come halftime, what are some things that he can be grabbing? How would you recommend decreasing the risk of muscle cramping? I know we didn't touch on it too much, so a little bit of a curveball, but would love to hear kind of some of your ideas. And then with the snack that he goes to, the goldfish crackers, are they a good option? And if so, why? If not, why? So going to give you a little bit of a second here to enter in those responses, but I'm going to start responding and start answering kind of that top one. So when it comes to the carbohydrates, again, that recommendation is going to be right around 1.5 to 2 grams per pound of body weight. So with Bill being right around 200 pounds, if he's hitting 300 grams of carbohydrates for that pregame meal, he's in a solid spot. Some good carbohydrate options would be, if he wants to go with the old classic of the pasta, perfect. If he wants to make sure that there's some mashed potatoes to kind of go on with anything, beautiful. Having a sandwich and the bread there, also fantastic. What are some recommendations to help Bill feel more energetic in the second half of the game? Similar concept. When we get close to the game and during the game, those simple carbohydrates are going to be key. The body's going to be able to digest them really well and clear it out of the stomach to ensure no stomach issues, no bloating or anything out on the field. So some samples would be sports drinks, bananas, chewy bars, fruit chews, those types of things. Super easy, super simple. The body's be able to digest, provide that energy quick, and get back out there. To decrease the risk of muscle cramping, there's a lot of things that can go into muscle cramps, but a couple big things revolve around the hydration component. So making sure that he's drinking adequate fluids beforehand, that 16 to 24 ounces during that pre-game meal, and then also during the game, ensuring he's got fluids going in, and then also too, having the electrolytes. So sports drinks can be very beneficial there, and adding a little bit of extra salt at that pre-game meal, and also any little meals and snacks leading up to the game, which is why goldfish crackers would be a perfect snack. They're going to provide some quick and simple carbohydrates, and also they have a little bit of extra sodium to be able to bump that electrolyte intake up. Case study number 2. Now we've got Ryan. We got 21 years old, 6'2", 290-pound defensive tackle. He's been having some issues with some frequent stomach discomfort during games. After doing a basic nutrition assessment, we realized that he eats a large meal 2 hours before a game. That meal is made up large in part by fat because he's thinking that the fat is going to keep him feeling full and energetic during the competition. So, having understood that and learning this about Ryan, what are some possible reasons for his GI distress? And what suggestions do you have to reduce it? Then also, how many carbs and fat are recommended for him to eat prior to the game and when? What is that window, that timing? And then any suggestions to make him feel energetic during the game. Again, feel free, think through things, and you're more than welcome to pop your responses into the chat. We can start to brainstorm a little bit, see what other ideas that other individuals have. But while you're putting that in, I'm going to start going through it as well. So, some possible reasons for the GI distress that poor Ryan's been experiencing. A big part of this could be the fact that he's eating a large meal so close to the game. It's a big ask of the stomach to try to digest a whole lot in such a short window. We want to make sure that we're having that last full pre-game meal about 4 hours, 3 hours at the minimum before the game. You want to give the body time to be able to digest it. And during that meal, we want to make sure that the plate has a little bit less fat than it sounds like he's been having. We want to make sure that carbohydrates are the dominant player on that plate. Because again, the carbs are what the body's going to be tapping into the most during the game itself, and not that fat, especially at the high intensity activities. The fat is just going to take longer for the body to digest. And while it will help instill some of that fullness, which is why a little's okay, too much is asking too much of the body to digest. So that, again, is going to result in some food still being in the stomach when he goes out to the field, leading to that discomfort that he was experiencing. So as far as how many carbs we would recommend for Ryan to be striving for, so going back again to kind of that 3 to 4 grams per kilogram component of things, if we take Ryan, we would want to be having him right around kind of 450 grams of carbohydrates, right around that base benchmark for him to be hitting in that pre-match meal. So if he's hitting that, he's going to be rocking and rolling in a great spot there. Suggestions for him to feel energetic during the game. Same thing. We want to make sure that it comes back to having those simple carbohydrate snacks on hand. The goldfish can be great options at halftime. Having those sports drinks, having a banana, having granola bars, having pretzels. These are all things great to be able to keep on hand to ensure that the carbohydrates that we're using during the game, we're able to refill and replenish at halftime to keep going for that second half. Some other frequently asked questions that tend to pop up is, can I eat a large meal 2 hours prior to a game to prevent being hungry during the game? This is a tricky question because it comes a little bit back to that individualized response. If it sits well for you, you're okay. Ideally, we would recommend having that 3 to 4 hours beforehand, give the body time to digest things, and then having another snack at that 2 hour mark. So as opposed to just having that big old meal at 2 hours, push that back, have it a little earlier, and then set yourself up for a little snack at that 2 hour mark. It's easier on the stomach to digest and helps decrease the chances of any upset stomach popping up later on. Another question. I like string cheese, chocolate, beef jerky, popcorn, and bananas. Can I eat them before a game? I love those things too. And again, if those sit well for you, you are okay. That being said, out of all of these, the popcorn and the bananas are going to be the main ones that are going to be able to provide that carbohydrate component. So if you're hitting all your carbohydrate goals and you just have a little bit of a craving for that string cheese, chocolate, or beef jerky, and you know I'm not saying you think, but you know it will sit well for you, you're okay. If you're unsure, err on the side of caution and opt more so for that popcorn and bananas. The next one, I feel nervous and can't eat a large amount of food prior to a game. What can I do to have more energy? This is a very common one. Those butterflies start to build up, and sometimes the idea of consuming a full meal just is not appealing. This is where that smoothie can really come into play. Liquid meals and liquid beverages are going to be a lot easier to get down, and it's a lot easier on the stomach to be able to digest and process. So that would be my number one recommendation. And then also, too, sticking with those simple foods that the body's going to be able to digest. Again, the sports drinks, those bananas, toast, those chews, those types of things. Easy on the stomach, quick in, quick out. It's not going to necessarily cause too much distress, but also listen to your body. What sits well for you? And then, how much water should I drink prior to a game to stay hydrated? General rule of thumb is if throughout the day you're consuming about half your body weight in fluid ounces, you're good to go. But predominantly, we just want to make sure that the days before leading up to it, that we're hitting those targets. The day of, it should be maintenance. There should be no catch up. So as long as you're having about 16 ounces of fluid, 16 to 24 at each meal leading up to it, you're in a good spot. But the hydration in particular is established in those days leading up to it. And I almost missed, should I consume energy drinks prior to or during a game? This one I can say with a pretty emphatic no, please don't. While the energy drinks absolutely can get that heart rate going and get the adrenaline going and things like that, that's not what you want. You don't want to artificially stimulate those things. It can be very dangerous. And not only that, but it'll dehydrate you and result in a decreased performance potentially. But that danger and that health risk, though, is kind of that first thing. Don't put yourself in that situation. Focus on the sports drinks, focus on water, keep your body in a good spot there, and keep those energy drinks away. So, after all that, the action steps and things to review. Carbohydrate is that primary fuel for that high intensity burst and the kind of longer little durations of the entire football game itself. So have carbohydrates early, have them during, have them at halftime to keep that energy tank fueled. So consuming foods high in carbohydrate, moderate in protein, pulling back on that fat and fiber to give the stomach the best opportunity to digest things to keep you feeling good. The timing and food composition are crucial. So again, we want to make sure that we're giving our body time to digest things and not having that meal too close to the game itself. So be sure, no new foods on game day, have things that are familiar, and practice these strategies on training days. Practice how you play. So focus on that, prioritize those things, see how your body responds, and then apply it to the game itself. So if looking for a couple extra tips, here's a nice little resource as well. Feel free to kind of check that out there. And a lovely quote from one of the GOATs, if not the GOAT, Tom Brady. If you don't believe in yourself, why is anyone else going to believe in you? Have that confidence, put that effort into your nutrition to set yourself up to perform your best and go and do what you know you can do. And to help with that, if you want to dive into things a little bit more and you want to make sure that you're applying everything that we discussed to you specifically and to your athletes specifically, sign up for the one-on-one sports nutrition coaching that we have. We'll dive into all these topics, set up that personalized approach to ensure that the individual needs are being met with myself and one of the dietitians on our team. You got 2 free weeks to test it out. You got nothing to lose. And if you like what we have set up and like the process of things, we can keep rocking and rolling. So to establish that, if you go into the app, you tap that connections, programs, and resources, there will be that lovely sports dietitian button. If you hit that, you'll see myself and you can sign up and we can chat. We can start to put that plan in place and make sure that you're getting everything that you need. So for quick reference, here's that QR code. Feel free to scan it. Feel free to sign up and we can dive on in, making sure that you or your athletes have everything that they need, everything's locked in, and everything's rocking and rolling. So with that, I do see that we have one question Do energy drinks also include pre-workout? Excellent question. So that's a tricky topic in the sense that pre-workouts can be different for everything. The general typical pre-workouts, though, absolutely would fall into the same category as energy drinks. They're going to be loaded with stimulants. They're going to have things like caffeine itself, green tea extract, and all the concoctions of everything added in with it, all stimulants of the heart. And while individually, each of those items in and of themselves may be okay, we're still trying to learn how the body responds when all of those things are combined. And so far, especially for the energy drinks in particular, the findings haven't been overly positive necessarily. So, not to say that all of them are the exact same, but I would always err on the side of caution and recommend avoiding that and limiting that and prioritizing that whole food approach. The food's going to come first. But excellent question. I would say if anyone else has a question, feel free fire away, but we are at our time. So um just gonna linger here for a hot second more. Perfect. Yeah, thank you everyone to everyone who came out. If you have any other questions or anything else, please always feel free to reach out to us, check out the website. And if wanting to be able to again have that 2 weeks to dive into that one-on-one nutrition coaching, feel free, use the QR code, sign it up. Again, free for the first 2 weeks. The price is right. So check it out. But again, thank you for your time, and I hope you all have a wonderful night.